Welcome to episode 75 of Confident at Work. I am your host and confidence coach, Anna Manning, and today I'm going to be talking to you about high confidence habits. So, I think and plan and write and ponder a lot about how to say the things that will help you with your confidence, about how to explain concepts which will help you with your confidence. I spend time puzzling and coming up with different ways to think about it and to talk about it because different things resonate with different people. And one of the things that I've been talking about more recently is building habits which support confidence. And if you've listened to the podcast before, you might know that I created a high confidence cycle and a low confidence cycle. And when I created these, I basically was writing down, so pulling out from the data and writing down sets of patterns and behaviors which I saw when someone's confidence was lower, so the low confidence cycle, and when someone's confidence was higher, so the high confidence cycle. But as I've spent time developing these and refining them and working with clients on them to take them from a low confidence cycle to a high confidence cycle, I realized that actually they're basically just a set of habits. And most of them are habits that you may have adopted unconsciously, which might be harming your confidence or might be creating an environment for you to work in where it's very difficult to feel confident. And if that's the case, you might be in a low confidence cycle. But by the time you've changed your habits and embedded these new habits, that create confidence or that support confidence maintenance and building, you're going to be in a high confidence cycle. So I started to think about talking to you about how you can not just be in a high confidence cycle, but what are the habits within that cycle? What are the component parts of the high confidence cycle? And it's basically just a series of high confidence habits. And they're habits that once you're conscious of, you can adopt on purpose and you can start using in order to lay the foundations and lay the groundwork for confidence. And I know that they work because this is all of the work that I do with people all of the time and I get to watch it in real time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to devote an episode just to sharing what these high confidence habits are. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, come and hang out with me on LinkedIn. I love being on there. But if you follow me on LinkedIn, I've been doing this series about high confidence habits. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to create that for the podcast. So today is high confidence habits, and I've got 12. There may be more. You may have more. But I've got 12 that I want to run you through. And these are habits which you can adopt. And if you want to feel more confident, um, well, would I go so far as to say is you should adopt? No, I think you're going to know whether or not you should, and you get to decide whether or not you should and whether or not you want to. Because adopting these habits is going to take a bit of time and a bit of intention. However, I don't think it's as hard to get these to stick as it is to get some habits to stick. And my work with clients would tell me that that is also the case. So, we have 12 high confidence habits for you today on the podcast. And if you haven't already signed up for the Grow Your Professional Confidence Masterclass, it's taking place on the 8th of January, then go and hit the link in the show notes and sign up now. Then you'll get an email which puts allows you to just add it to your electronic calendar, and that's got all the joining details, and you can come and join us live. Or if you sign up, you'll also get the replay in your inbox. I think we have we have like maybe 100 signups or something now. So there's plenty of people coming to join us in that class. And that is going to be not only high confidence habits, but also helping you to identify your low confidence habits so you can kick those and embed these. So, number one, your first high confidence habit is to speak to yourself with respect. Now, we all know that at work, we want to be spoken to with respect. And some people say, oh, I know I need to be kind to myself. I should be kind to myself. And Yeah, okay, maybe if you choose, you can be kind to yourself. But generally, given that it's a working environment, if we think about how we want to speak to other people, we would generally say, I speak to people with respect, right? Even if I can't go to the level of kindness, or what does that even mean in a work context, right? Maybe, yeah, but a base level, I think, is to speak to people with respect. So I think a base level for you in terms of how you speak to yourself is, or could be, respect. And I think once you have embedded the habit of speaking to yourself with respect rather than what our critical kind of voices, internal voices tend to do, which is disrespectful, harsh, um, fill in the blank, what your inner kind of monologue sounds like at work. But if it doesn't sound like respect, then this is the first habit that you need to adopt on your way to feeling more confident at work. Because let's face it, who would feel confident at work if they were being constantly judged, criticized, blamed, shamed, named? No one. In order to be at your best at work, to feel your most confident and to do stuff to the best that you possibly can, you want a respectful environment and you want to be spoken to with respect. And that, my friend, includes you. So, number two, your second habit, your second high confidence habit is to set realistic standards. Now, this might mean different things at different times and in different contexts, but many people who I work with would say they're a perfectionist, they have to get everything 100% right all the time, and like woe betide them if they don't. Now, it may be that you are performing spinal surgery on someone and you really have to get it right, otherwise, they're going to end up paralyzed. However, it may be that you're not doing that, or it may be that you're not even doing that in some of your job. So your brain may have the default standard 100% perfect, everything, every time. Doesn't matter whether it's new, doesn't matter if you don't know what you're doing, doesn't matter if you're exploring a new area or doing something for the first time. 100% perfect is the brain's default standard. Now, that might be an unconscious habit that your brain's adopted. And what you want to do for your high confidence habit is adopt a conscious standard, which is, let's hope, realistic. Because when you set realistic standards, that might be given a day, a particular day in time, that might be given a particular task, it might be work for a particular client. When you set a realistic standard, it's more likely that you're able to reach it, and that helps you to maintain your confidence. Because if your standard is unrealistic, you can imagine how detrimental that would be to somebody's confidence. If you were constantly set unrealistic standards at work, which you might say, well, I am actually, Anna, and it's not great. There you go. And if we're looking to create an environment where you can build your confidence, one of your high confidence habits, I think, should be setting realistic standards. So, number three is recognizing your attempts. So, your third high confidence habit is going to be recognizing your attempts. And the reason that this one is important is because, and maybe it's linked to the perfectionist thing that we just did in habit two, but when we're growing our skill, when we're growing our expertise, our capacity, our capability, we want to get it right. But we can't always get things right. We can't always get things perfect. So let's say I am trying to speak up more in meetings. I'm trying to grow my confidence and my capacity around speaking up in meetings. On the way to that, I need to embed this high confidence habit, which is recognizing my attempts. And what that means in that context is when I actually manage to get something out of my mouth, even though it might be slightly garbled, I've got to recognize myself for that. So instead of saying, oh my God, it was garbled, what was that rubbish you were saying? I'm going to say, no, you know what? I'm going to recognize myself for the fact that I actually opened my mouth and said something, even though I was a bit afraid. I did it. And that's a high confidence habit because it allows you in a slightly less stressful environment with slightly less pressure to be recognized for the thing that you've done, but it also allows you the space and the time to just make an attempt rather than it has to be wonderful or this point has to land well with everyone. No, we're just going for giving it a try. And then we recognize the person, us, for giving it a try. And that is what helps to build our confidence and build our resilience. Our fourth habit is to learn how to handle self-doubt. And one of the ways that I love to teach people around this is to do a 180 on our self-doubt. But first, you've got to be able to spot it. So you might have all kinds of self-doubt in your mind around particular issues, particular people, particular types of work, or maybe just the job itself. And the first thing you've got to do is recognize that for what it is. It's just doubt that your mind's producing. It's just a thought, right? It's not a fact. There's probably some evidence for, and there's probably a lot of evidence against. But you want to be able to recognize self-doubt. That is a high confidence habit in and of itself, just to be able to recognize it for what it is, a thought in your mind, not a fact. Number 5, your fifth high confidence habit is to deal with mistakes fairly and constructively. So in our workplaces, if we make a mistake, we want it to be dealt with fairly and we want it to be dealt with constructively. So most people will say, yeah, if I make a mistake, I need to be dealt with fairly because I need to go and be able to tell someone like in safety that I've done something and I've messed up. But I also need them to be constructive, like if they're going to help me to learn from it or, what the next steps are, maybe help me to sort it out. But what you don't expect is somebody to hang, draw and quarter you and then remind you why you're crap at your job for the next 3 months. Oh, do you remember when you made that mistake? You shouldn't be here. You messed up. Nobody wants that. If that happens after a mistake, it destroys your confidence. So this high confidence habit is really, really important because mistakes are unfortunately an inevitable part of everyone's professional life. And it might be a tiny little mistake that doesn't really have a lot of impact, or it might be something big that does have some impact. But dealing with mistakes fairly and constructively is how you maintain your confidence when things go wrong. And since it's inevitable that something will go wrong at some point, you need to have a way of dealing with it which maintains your confidence. And that's why dealing with mistakes fairly and constructively is a high confidence habit. Number 6 high confidence habit is noticing the whole picture. And our brains are wired towards the negative. I mean, I'm assuming yours is. I never really meet people who aren't. So I think that is part of our wiring and our programming, is that we're great at spotting flaws, we're great at spotting negatives, we're great at spotting risk, like critically analysing and using our brains to figure out what has gone wrong or what could go wrong, or it enables us to kind of focus on not messing up again, really, by being able to laser in on something that's gone wrong. But what that also means is that we can tend to miss the fact that as well as this one thing that's gone wrong, there's probably 20 other things that day that have gone right. So a high confidence habit is being able to, instead of just allowing your mind to myopically focus on the negative, on the flaw, or on the mistake, is to be able to step back and be like, hang on a minute, there's a whole picture here. There's a whole context, and be able to see that whole picture. And yes, that includes some bad things, but it also includes a lot of good things. Number 7 high confidence habit is providing yourself with emotional support. Now, you know how to treat a colleague or a friend on a day where they're just having a bad day. You probably listen to them. You probably ask them if there's anything they need. Maybe you make them a cup of tea, right? You provide them with some emotional support. You acknowledge what they're feeling. Maybe you validate it. You see if there's anything you can do. You do all of that. But most people don't do any of that for themselves. They expect themselves to kind of push through, power through, and tell themselves, oh, you should just get over it. Which is really nice, isn't it, when you're having a bad day? Imagine if you went to someone and said, I'm just having this really awful day for these reasons. And they were like, you should just push through and get over it. You'd be like, how unbelievably helpful is that person? Not at all. You probably would never tell them again if you were having a bad day, but you might be doing that to yourself. So, a high confidence habit that you can develop, which will maintain your confidence, is to provide yourself with the same kind of emotional support that you'd provide for others. Maybe just acknowledging it's a bad day. I can see that you're having a hard day today. What is it that you need, Anna? What is it that I can do to help you? Allowing that rather than just, telling ourselves to buck up and carry on, which some days we might have to, but other days, not helpful. The 8th high confidence habit is acknowledging yourself. And one of the things that I've been talking to people about at the moment is being able to take a compliment. Because most people who come to work with me, they really want to be acknowledged for the stuff that they do. Because I think we all do, really. Like, we've spent time and effort and put our energy into things, and it's nice to be acknowledged for that. But often, we're not very good at acknowledging ourselves. And even more often, the acknowledgement doesn't necessarily come in the form or in the frequency that we might want it to from other people. So we really have to learn how to do this for ourselves. And this is a high confidence habit, to be able to say, I'm going to acknowledge myself for this today. And learning how to take a compliment. This is in the same vein. So some people will say, I want acknowledging for what I do, but when people acknowledge me, I don't really believe them. I just brush it off and say, oh, they're probably being nice. So this is a double one. Learn to acknowledge yourself and learn to take a compliment. The 9th high confidence habit is to learn how to handle hecklers. And when I say hecklers, I mean those voices in your mind which you hear when you're trying to do something. So let's say I'm trying to give a presentation and I'm standing up in front of everybody, and I notice that my brain has got stuff that it wants to say, like, they're bored, you're boring, you're losing them. Who are you even to be telling these people these things? Right? That is what I call hecklers. And hecklers can appear before you attempt to do something. They can appear during the time when you're doing it, and they can appear afterwards. But it is a feature for most people of what their brain will come up with, especially when they're trying to do something outside their comfort zone. The very moment where you want to feel confident and you don't is where the hecklers arrive. So, this high confidence habit of learning how to handle those hecklers and quiet them down is really important. So, number 10, we're getting towards the end. Number 10 is similar to the hecklers, but maybe slightly different. And it's learn how to, this high confidence habit is to notice stressful thoughts. Now, these can come in all shapes and sizes at work, but very often they can just kind of swirl around quite unconsciously. Or they can start up and then they can go down their own rabbit holes, they can go down their own spiral, down a track, and we're just sat there at the effect of these thoughts, which have then completely taken over our brain. Like, oh no, that was rubbish. What's going to happen? Oh, they're going to think I'm rubbish at my job. I'm not going to get that promotion. Then I'm going to lose my job. Then I'm going to lose my house. Then nobody will love me anymore. Anyone recognize that one? Right? All of us have a tendency to go down a bit of a loop with our thoughts. And some of the time we'll be able to notice that and bring ourselves back to reality, but some of the time we won't. But it's really useful skill. It's a high confidence habit to be able to notice those thoughts so that you can do an intervention. Just like if there were two colleagues in front of you and one of them was saying to the other, "Oh God, I'm not sure about that. Gosh, what are people going to think? You might lose your whole reputation. Then you might lose your job. Then you might lose your house. And then your family won't love you anymore and you'll end up on the street." Imagine if you heard somebody else saying that. You'd be like, whoa, 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 stop, stop, stop. That's way beyond what's probably going to happen. Let's come back to reality and actually assess it with some perspective. Being able to notice those stressful thoughts just like you'd notice them if somebody else was saying them in front of you is a really high confidence habit, because then once you notice them, you can learn to actually step back and assess them and say, okay, is that actually right? Maybe, but maybe not. Number 11, your number 11 high confidence habit is to lower your expectations, especially when something is new, when you're learning, or when you are outside of your comfort zone. So let's say you are taking on a new role. Your expectation might be, and this is so many people's unconscious expectation, that they hit the ground running, they go in on day one, they do everything perfectly first time, and they know everything. And we're like, how realistic actually is that? You can't maintain your confidence in your expertise and your experience and your appropriateness as the person for that role if you're expecting the world on the stick on day one. But you can maintain your confidence in your expertise, in your experience, and in your appropriateness for the role if you lower your expectations slightly and say, okay, well, what should be my expectation here? Maybe it's that I know 70% of what I need to know right now. Maybe it's 60, maybe it's even 50, maybe it's even less. Sometimes our expectations are just outlandish, and all that serves to do is damage our confidence when we can't measure up to our crazy expectations. And we think that a really high expectation in terms of that job is a good thing because we want to do well. Yes, I agree. We want to do well. But when our expectations are so high, it's harder for us to do well because we become paralyzed, we become anxious. It's when we lower our expectations slightly and we're more realistic that we can think, okay, here's what I do know and here's what I don't know. And what I don't know, I can find out. And I'm still good enough. And number 12, the 12th high confidence habit is learning to love your emotions, or at least learning to work with them. And typically the what we would say is very pleasant emotions are easy to work with, right? When I'm confident, when I'm happy, when I'm whatever, feeling powerful, those, they're not going to take, they don't need much management. They're just going to be there and they're just going to give me the fuel that I want to do the things that I want. But there are lots of other emotions that are part of our working life and a part of our everyday, like sometimes worry or fear or anxiety or panic. And for a lot of us, those emotions can be quite prevalent, especially if you're currently not feeling as confident as you want, especially if you're in a low confidence cycle right now. Those emotions are going to be frequent visitors to your body. And so learning how to notice them, work with them, feel them, and how to, I think, take care of them is a really strong, high confidence habit. And if you have worked with me before, you might be listening to all of those and thinking, we've definitely talked about all of those. And they're all the habits that I've embedded. And if you've never worked with me before, you might be thinking, I don't know if I've got any of those habits. Or you might think, oh, I've got a couple, but there are others that I haven't quite embedded yet. And I think that's good news, because what that means is you've got plenty to go at. There's loads of habits that you can embed. And think about this. I've given you 12 there. Now, if you embed those 12 habits, your confidence is going to be singing compared to what it is now. And they are all just habits which you can adopt and which you can embed. All of our brains have what they call neuroplasticity. And that just means your brain's ability to be able to shift and change and rewire in order to do something differently than it's done it before. Changing a habit is just doing something differently than you have done it before. So if you've ever changed a habit or learned something new or thought about something differently, that's neuroplasticity in action. And that means you can do it again. You can embed all of these habits, if you choose to, with some intention. And I would love to help you do it. So on the 1st of January, I am going to be launching the Confident at Work program. And that program is going to teach you how to embed every single one of these high confidence habits throughout the year. And it's going to give you 2 coaching calls a month, group calls with me and with everybody else in the program, so that you can come, ask your questions, troubleshoot your particular confidence issues or the particular habit that you're trying to embed. And I am going to give you expert support, and the community is going to give you community support. You can embed these habits over 2024 and imagine where your confidence will be once you've embedded all of those habits. I can tell you that it will be streets ahead of where it is now. So I will leave all the details in the show notes. You are warmly invited into that program. It's currently £360. And I know we've got people listening from all over the world. That is GBP. So if you haven't signed up for the Grow Your Professional Confidence class, you can do that as well. That's a free masterclass. So come and take advantage of that. And that is going to help you start to identify where your low confidence habits are and what your high confidence habits need to be. All right. I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.